It's another great day here in Marathon. It's pouring rain outside again. It's been raining, I don't know, this fall's been a strange one. Been raining and raining all the time. Never seen a September in my life where it rains almost every day. But anyways, that keeps me in my workshop working, so maybe this is a good thing. Anyways, this is just going to be a short video today. Just a fellow drops off a whole bunch of cables. He's got guitar amp cables, and all of them got a little static in them. So I'm just going to take one of them and just a short video on how to repair an amp cable that's got some static in it. So I'm going to move right up to the Skycam, so stay tuned and see what has to get done. Over and out. Well, I hope you can see everything okay from the Skycam up there. So this is one of the cables I have right here. And you can see these cables here, the plug has the holder here unscrews on both ends, and in a case like this, unscrew it and pull it back, and it shows you a little heat shrink with the contacts where they've been soldered onto the jack. So of course the first thing before we do anything, we're going to test this thing and see, is it noisy on this jack, or both jacks. So in order to do that, we obviously have to have a guitar. I use this one acoustic to test with. We're just going to sit it down here, and we're going to plug in the cable into the guitar. I make sure the volume's turned off on this guitar in case there's a big short or a big ground that's going to make a terrible noise. And just a minute, I plug this into my little gigantic 5-watt test amp beside me here. And we're going to see here what's going on with a little volume. There it comes. Oh yeah. So right away, you can hear this one here. Yeah, so we got a problem on this one here, and I'm just going to check the amp plug. So the amp plug's okay, but the plug in the guitar here is going open. So turn off the volume, turn off the amp. We now know that's the side that's got the problem in it. And let's open it up, and might help have my glasses on. I might be able to see something. Obviously a sign of old age. Can't see nothing without my glasses. Sometimes I forget where my glasses are. So let's open this guy up. Take this heat shrink off to start with. And you see all I'm doing, I'm just taking one of these knives, take the heat shrink right off, take a look inside, see what we see. So in this case here, you can see we've got ourselves a solid solder connection. Both the feed and the ground are okay. So what's happening in this case here is probably right in this area right here. This thing has been bent so many times, it probably the hot feed is going open. So we're gonna fix that problem, hopefully. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take these little cleats off the side, just like that. You can see they come off. Then this is gonna come off. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut this cable right off of here. Just like that. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to skin this back, clean it up, clean the solder off of this thing, put it back together again and test it. So that's going to be the process. And I'm going to go back. Guy's going to lose maybe a couple inches on his, maybe I better go back a little bit more. He's going to lose a couple inches on his cord to do this, which is not a big problem. I think he's got it. It looks like a 20-foot cord anyway, so no big deal. Sometimes these old cables there, it's hard to get the, this one here, hard to get the rubber off. She don't want to come. I'm going to loosen it up a little bit, just give it a little bit of a crimping here along the way with my, in here with my diagonals. See if I can loosen that rubber up a little bit. See if I can get it to slide off. There it goes. So, what's we got here? We got ourselves the ground sheath. You can see that. Gonna get it back out of the way, because we're gonna have to solder that ground sheath back in, inside this this thing here, this jack. So let's just see if we can circumvent that problem where it's grabbing on that one spot like that. Let's see if we can get this ground wire out of the way like this. So you see what I'm doing here. I cut the one side of it off, and I'm making sure there's no little fibers there hanging out to dry, gonna cause me a problem. Twist it up real good, because this part I'm twisting up is gonna end up being soldered right in there on that jack, right where that little solder mark is. So that's the target I'm going for, is that right there. So once I get this done the way I want it, I'm gonna snip that off. Just like that. That's looking good. And now we're going to go and say, okay, if I solder that right there, I'm going to be about here for this guy. So we got another layer here to go through. Not a big deal. Get it like that. Now we got another layer to go through, because I got to get down into that little wire inside. Now this is where you got to be a little careful, because if I take these and snip a little too far, a little too deep, I'm gonna cut into that wire that is used to feed the signal. So I'm being very careful when I strip this, not to there, just like that. You see how that come off? So what I got now is I have not snipped any of those little conductors off. I got the whole copper in its entirety sitting there. And I twist it up real good. Just like that. So we got something that looks like this. Something that looks like this. It's got to come back a little more because it's stretched, but that's okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop the video, because I'm going to set up my soldering iron and get it warmed up. Get this thing hooked up into my, my little soldering rig, and then we're going to solder it back on. And then if everything works correctly, that'll be hopefully the fix to this static problem. So bear with me, we'll be back shortly. Stay tuned, over and out. Just going to show you a close-up here of this rig. So what I have here is a soldering workstation that you can see. It's got a magnifying glass for poor old people like me that can't see too well. Yeah, I'm okay with my glasses on. And it's got a third arm here for holding stuff that you need 3 hands to work on. And in this case here, I've got 2 little clips on each side. You can see the one clip here. I clip it. And the other clip here, and I clip it on. And I'm going to take my soldering iron and I'm going to heat it up. And the other thing I find when I'm taking solder off metal, you know what? I use a toothpick. I take that wood, and if I scrape it in there and you know, there's a hole to poke through, the solder won't stick to the wood. So it usually falls right off real clean. So just a little tip. The other thing you have is one of these guys. And what this is it's got a plunger in it. You push the plunger down, you heat the solder up, you stick that on the solder, you hit a button here, this thing shoot up and the suction sucks the solder right up inside of there, it cools off and drops out. So this is another little tool that you might need for soldering, but most cases, you know, I find the good old toothpick works just as well. So anyway, we'll be back shortly. Back up on the Skycam. So we're just going to heat this up. You'll see the soldering iron heat up very quickly. And just make sure that this solder spot here where the ground is going to go is nice and clean. And then I got up here to go through. There's probably a little hole here. Yes, there is. And I make sure I get the solder taken out of there as well. Clean it up, let it fall out. It's almost clean now. You can see, there we go. You get an idea of the process I'm using anyway to clean these contacts off, and stick the toothpick through a few times to the wood, and the stuff, it falls right out. So right now I've got that pretty clean. It's not a problem with that right now. So now we come to the fun part. It's finding the end that fell on the floor. There she comes. The other thing that you need to do here is, let me get this thing out of the way in case it's blocking the view. I have tubes here. These are heat shrink tubes. So what happens is you slide this over. You'll see what I mean. I'm going to take this and I'm going to pass it through here. Hopefully I'm going to pass it through there. If I get these ends so they're not all frayed. Like that. Get this thing nice and flat. Pass that through here like this. So what's going to happen now when I solder this thing on, and I want to make sure that these contacts aren't touching anything, I'm going to be able to pull this heat shrink up over top of where I soldered, put a heat gun to it, and shrink wrap it. And then you've got a bulletproof, no way of any wire to touch anything by mistake, and no more static. So I'm going to go ahead, and I don't need this long a one. I only need about this much. So I'm just going to cut this off about here, like that. And I'm only going to put this little short piece on here. Slide it on. We got that done. Now the easiest way to solder this guy is if I take this thing off of here, you see, and what I do is I use these clips here to hold this thing in place tightly. So you can see I'm going to line this up here so it's just about a match with where that's going to solder on, and I've got my ground wire sitting below it. So with that said and done, all I'm going to do is I get my my diagonals here, or my I don't know, little needle nose, and I'm going to crimp that back down, make that tight, so that's going to hold on there good. Make it as round as I can. Because what we have to do is we have to make sure that this guy is going to go over top like that. So we make sure we get this crimped down correctly first to hold it in place, something like that. Now with that done, you see I should be able to take this, move it up out of the way like this. You see how I'm just going to bend this? This guy going to bend back a little bit like that. And all I gotta do is drop solder on that ground underneath. And if I want, I can pull this up out of the way. It's bendable. So my next little effort is to ground that little ground wire here on this sidebar. So what we're gonna do, go back to the little rig, hook everything back up again, pull this back. Now I'm going to use my little my little cheater here, and I'm going to clip that little ground wire right in there on that right on there where I'm going to be soldering it. I'm going to bring the Skycam down. I'll show you this in a close-up so you see what I'm doing. So I'm going to bring that Skycam down right now, and you're going to come down here and take a good look. And you can see what I've done here. So what I've got is I've got clamped on. You can see I've got the clamp here, and I've got the other one over here. But I've got this third one, this arm here. And you see what I've done is it's holding down that ground portion that's going to be soldered to the back plate of that shaft there. So with this like that, this little workstation makes it very easy to do these little kind of things. So with that, now that you see what the setup is, I'm going to go back to the Skycam. I'm going to solder that in place. So be right back. Okay, we had a little knock at the door. Had a delivery come in. So anyway, there's the door. And I get some laptops delivered sitting over here, but that's okay. That got nothing to do with our problem today. Just an interruption. But I want to show you what this looks like when the solder is all done. So you can see I've got the ground wire soldered to the bottom of the shaft. You can see that hopefully right in there. And you can see the top connection, the hot connection is there. So we'll get this thing in focus. There, as it doesn't want to flare, it goes in focus. So that's kind of what it looks like. And then the next thing is we put the heat shrink on and close it up. So up to the Skycam. Well, we got the pulled up the heat shrink, pulled it over top of the contacts that I just soldered. So this is kind of what it looks like now. And all I'm gonna do, show you what I do with a heat gun here. Just put it on, let it heat up a bit, and just apply the heat to that heat shrink. That's it, guys. Just like that, so you can see what it looks like. Heat shrinks on. Put this back on. Screw it back together. That's all done. So, what happens now? Well, we find out if it works. I know it'll work. I'm going to get rid of my little workstation here, get it out of the way. Get my heat gun out of the way. I don't need him no more. Put him back in the closet here. Let him cool down first though, before I stick it in somewhere that it's going to still hot. That heat gun has still got a pretty hot end. Take a few minutes to cool down. Get all my little tools put away here. Get that put away. Clean up a bit. So, get the solder put away. Okay, now we go get the guitar. Put the guitar down again. Plug her in. Make sure the volume's down. Turn on the amp. And let's see what happens here. Turn up the volume. So, no more static problem. One fixed chord. So hopefully that little short video was informative, and like I say, if you got a little bit of a little heat shrink and a little bit of solder and a decent soldering gun, pretty easy to fix your own amp cords if you wish to. So with that, I'll say goodbye, and y'all have a good day. Bye-bye.